Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at the SAQ or short answer question portion of the AP exam. So essentially you have 40 minutes for 3 questions and it is 20% of the overall grade. Obviously the number one thing would be the multiple choice, number 2 is the DBQ, and then SAQ is the next highest percentage grade. So 3 questions. Now each question has 3 separate parts, 2 to 3 separate parts, but mostly 3 separate parts. So really 40 minutes for 9 questions, all right, which is approximately 4 minutes and 45 seconds per question. Question 1 is going to be a secondary source, like you're gonna get a stimulus, secondary source. Question 2 is a primary source stimulus, and then question 3 and 4 are no stimuluses. So there's 4 questions there. You have to do question 1, you have to do question 2, but you can pick between question 3 or 4, which one you want to do. If you're using this for AP World History, where those sources come from and the dates that they come from are going to vary versus a push. And AP Euro, the dates are going to vary as well if you're using that for that. But as you can see here, here's kind of the date breakdown. The real big thing is your non-stimulus based question, number 3 and 4, those are going to be from 2 different eras, if you can see here. And so, whatever one's your strongest in, probably the one you want to try to answer, but you can pick at the time. Each SAQ is worth 3 points. Most SAQs have 3 parts, 1 point for each. So scoring is simple. Either you get it or you don't. Either you get the point or you don't. It's right or wrong. There's no partial credit. You've done it or you haven't got it, 1 or 0. This is where it's important to be specific and be concise, and we're going to talk about some strategies with doing that. One of the things you really want to remember as we go through, and we're going to dive deeper into this in a minute, but answer the prompt, and then cite something, name, use evidence, and explain or elaborate. So ACE, answer, cite, explain, right? We're going to answer the prompt, provide evidence, and then elaborate on it and how it answers the prompt. So some basic tips. Reword the prompt and the answer to be clear what you are answering and to stay on topic. Be sure to address the historical thinking skill used, right? If there's one in there, if it's a compare and contrast question, you better compare and contrast. You better use that language, a comparison language. If it's a continuity and change, you better use that language in there. If there's a stimulus, you must refer to the stimulus in your answer, right? Like there may be a question, don't just go way off on it, some tangent. If there's a stimulus there, use that stimulus. It must include specific historical evidence. Be specific, be concise, right? So make sure you are identifying specific historical evidence. Vague references or generalities are not enough, right? Use facts like relevant names and dates, all right? Have like relevant, specific facts. Assume the reader has no background knowledge and make sure all your ideas are stated clearly. Again, be specific. And then use complete sentences, no bullet points, all right? No outlines, make sure it's complete sentences, but also no more than 3 sentences, all right? This is where it gets concise. Keep it to 2 to 3 sentences, no more than 3, all right? All right, so let's look at ACE. ACE, answer. Directly answer the question by identifying a specific historical claim or general historical assertion. Just answer the question. It is similar to making a thesis, right? An argument or claim. So, in a situation of selecting provided options, identify the selected option. In a situation of identifying similarity or differences, be sure to directly address both components of comparison. All right, so if we're looking at that, right, have some similarities and differences that you're addressing. All right, let's look at an example here. First, answer A, B, and C. All right, so number 1, there's 3 parts to it. We're going to look at just the first part. Briefly explain one example of how contact between Native Americans and Europeans brought changes to Native American societies in the period 1492 to 1700. First, 1 means 1, all right? Make sure you're not doing a bunch of examples. Don't go up there and say, oh yeah, the disease really impacted the Americans and also Columbian exchange really impacted the natives or something along those lines. Don't provide 2 examples, that's going to lose the point. Part of the time, you'll have 1 and then the next question will be like, briefly explain another example. And so sometimes they'll have that, but just make sure, like if it says 1, just stick to 1. All right, so right now what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment and write down an answer, right? You don't have to do the full ACE, just answer the question, one sentence only, directly answer the question using the tips from the previous screen. If you don't know, that's fine, just do your best, just take a guess. I'll give you a second here to do that. Or pause, actually, pause it. All right, now let's look at an example of an answer. So, the spread of contagious European-born diseases significantly decimated native populations. Right there, briefly explain one example of how contact between Native Americans and Europeans brought changes. Well, the spread of contagious European-born diseases significantly decimated the native populations. So it's specific, right? It doesn't just say diseases came. It told what diseases actually did, right? So it's a very specific and clear answer. All right. So the next portion of this is citing, all right? Depending on the prompt, this component requires you to directly answer the question by identifying a specific historical claim. Really what's important here is you are providing specific factual information relevant to the answer, relevant to the prompt, right? And so this is where being specific is really important. You're citing information. This is where you could also refer back to the stimulus if there's a stimulus there. And so that's what's really key here is that you're actually being specific in your citing at this point. This slide right here, I'm going to leave up for your reference for a couple of seconds. This is basically just some various tips. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the slide though. Just various tips that you can use when doing citation. You can come back to the video if you want. I'll leave it up for a few more seconds so it's easier to find. All right, so here's what I want you to do now. I want you to now write the citation, right? Give us whatever your answer was on the previous question. I want you to give a specific source that actually backs that up, right? Whatever your answer was, give a specific source that backs it up. If you don't know, just do your best, right? If you don't have anything specific, do your best. Pause here if you need to. All right, so here's the example I have. Natives did not possess natural immunities to smallpox and influenza, and almost 90% of them perished. So do you guys see what's happening here, right? Is 90% perished. Very specific, right? Specifically identifying diseases, right? Not just broad diseases, but natives did not possess natural immunities to smallpox and influenza. These are very specific diseases that attack, and how many, like an actual stat that showed how many died. So this is where we have that citation. So that's your second sentence, right? We got answer, second sentence, and now we have our third sentence, which is going to be elaborate or expand. So this last component requires you to explain how the answer best addresses the prompt. Like any writing prompt on the AP exam, there exists an intent and focus to assess historical understanding. All right, this explanation should connect or tie back to the answer to the prompt and fulfill its historical intent. Why expand? The explanation of the answer should include a further connection to direct or broad historical phenomenon relevant to the intent and focus on the question. So you really are just wanting to expand on it and show that, like, yeah, you know this information, all right? Make sure it ties back to the answer and the prompt. All right, take a second now and put in an elaboration for your last question. Do that last part for what you have so far. Pause here if you need to. All right, here's what I have. So, native population losses weakened their defenses, and European conquerors easily subjugated survivors and exploited their lands through colonization. So as you see, right, this expands on it. Native populations losses weakened their defenses, and European conquerors easily subjected survivors, exploited their lands. This also this shows an effect, right? We have a cause that he said before, the diseases, and it showed the effect of it. And so you can see that historical thinking scale also being implemented here, right? Showing what happened after the diseases happened. And so this right here is an example of your short answer question. Answer, cite, and elaborate. Or answer, cite, and expand. This is our example on it. My next video, I'm gonna actually give you guys an example of some previously written SAQs, and you're gonna have the opportunity to try to grade them yourself and see how they actually did. So make sure that you have done this video first before you've done the other one. All right, see you guys later.